Today is Black Women's Equal Pay Day. It's the day that marks how long in 2017 an African-American woman has had to work to be paid the same as her white male counterpart last year. According to the Economic Policy Institute, African-American women have to work 7 months into 2017 to make the same amount of money white men made in all of 2016. That is true whether the woman is a physician, an accountant, or working behind the register at a retail store. Even Black women with an advanced degree earn just over $7 an hour less than white men who have only a bachelor's degree. The study finds the gap has gotten worse over time. In 1979, Black women were near wage parity with white women, but in 2016, white women's wages grew to 76% of white men's wages. Black women are still at 67% of that. Joining us now is Cheney, the Executive Director and Campaign Manager for Equal Pay Today. In our panel, of course, Eugene Craig, Lauren Victoria Burke, and Lenny McAllister. Now, critics will say, well, it's unfair to do this overall comparison because there's just so many other different factors that could come into play.
There are certainly lots of factors that contribute to the wage gap. That said, we know that when you account for all of those factors, there's still a gap between women and men, and that a lot of that gap is unexplained, and it can't be made up for by women's choices or men's choices or all of the other things that they say are our faults, right? So there's something in there that's unexplained. It's a great deal of the gap, and so we are talking about it, and that's why we're focused on the wage gap.
And what sectors are the most egregious in terms of separation with wages?
Well, to be honest with you, the wage gap persists across occupations. So it exists in the news occupation, it exists in the legal occupation, it exists, as your opening showed, as well as retail occupation. So it's not, I don't think, so much fair to say one area is worse than the other. One of the things we do know is that when a woman or a man is unionized, the wage gap is smaller.
Right. Joy, does this also apply to opportunity gap? For example, if you have two physicians and a white male is offered an opportunity to join 3 boards, which is going to augment his income, versus that African-American woman that is not allowed to join those boards or not offered to join those boards, is that taken into consideration? Because the opportunity gap has to be part of that wage gap as well, I'd have to imagine.
Absolutely. So when we talk about these numbers, we're talking about full-time working women working all year, okay? But you're absolutely right. My mother is a physician in Orlando, Florida, and when she began her pediatric practice in the 70s, she could not get a loan. The Latino doctor, also in Orlando, who was a pediatrician, also could not get a loan. What that meant is they had to work much harder to have the basic medical things that you need to set up a medical practice. They had to earn that money before they could actually purchase. They had to purchase things on credit. It took a lot longer for them to catch up with some of their white male colleagues who were able to get business loans. So you're absolutely right. There's an opportunity gap there.
You said something about unions and fixed wages. Yeah. Isn't one of the escape routes to this is to get involved in employment where you're getting paid the same, everyone is getting paid the same? Like, say, if you're a photographer for Associated Press and the day rate is $425, is $425 for everybody?
Yeah. Of course, the thing is you have to get the job.
Right.
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 And once you get the job, you actually have to be given the hours. So with union workers, what wage gap looks like for them is, are they getting the hours? Are they getting the opportunities?
Right.
Once they get in them, they may be paid the same, but if you don't get them, then there you have it.
Now, if you're a dentist, a filling is a filling, right?
If you're a dentist, the filling is, a filling, but for instance, there may be other opportunity gaps that we discussed earlier, and frankly, not everyone works for themselves, right? So you may be working for a hospital, a school, or whatnot.
What kind of gains have you guys been seeing? Have you ever seen any gains, any closing?
So there's been lots of gains. So I'm so glad you asked. Around the country, I don't know if you're aware of these prior salary bands that have been sprouting up across the nation, and the Chamber and others have taken notice because it started in Massachusetts. There was a lot of business support for them, and they are bans on the use of prior salary. We've all gone for a job, and what's the first thing they ask you? What did you make at your last job? Well, really is a custom, but we don't really, there's no really relationship with how well you do on the job. When they ask that, though, it allows the wage gap to perpetuate itself. And it's not just because of discrimination. It may be a problem. It may be a problem because you are a person trying to recover from economic downturn.
Right.
It could be any number of reasons. There's no reason to carry an artificially low salary with you from job to job.
Have you ever studied public salaries that are public? I mean, like if you studied all the salaries on Capitol Hill, you can see what everybody makes. Have you ever looked at that? Yeah. Have you ever taken a look at that?
So there's a wage gap everywhere. We'll leave it there. And members of Congress aren't always held to the same laws and standards as the other employers around the nation, but there's certainly a wage gap there. And that's so funny that you should mention that, because Congress has a real opportunity to do something to really show that they support the wage gap, and that is to protect EEOC's pay data collection. So, Roland, everyone here knows, in the Obama administration, President Obama made pay equity a chief part of his priority. I was at EEOC, it was one of our priorities. What we've seen in the first 6 months now of the Trump administration is a real rollback on that. And what we're seeing now is a threat to the pay data collection on race, gender, and ethnicity to really show the intersection on black women, black men, and others of what the pay gap looks like.
Who did you count among black people? Because he's only got 3 or 4 on that list that they put out. It was like 4.
I'm not here.
Can I ask real quick, have you gone to cities and told them, if you close this, you'll be able to bolster your cities overall? Cities such as my hometown of Pittsburgh, they're trying to attract more minorities, more women in positions of power. Have you been able to go to some of these cities and say, if you're trying to make your civic society stronger and better, you need to close this, and this is how?
Equal Pay Today is a national campaign, and we have state projects, women's law projects all over the country, and including Women's Law Project in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So we have been going to cities and states all over the country and really talking to them about closing the wage gap. It would cut poverty in half.
Yeah.
All right, then. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
go out and tweet 2 to 3 today. Black women's equal pay.
All right, then. Also, where can people actually see the study? Where can they go? What's the site?
Go to www.blackwomens'equalpayday.org.
All right, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh, my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong. He
Unfiltered.
wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.